Chương trình này được bảo trợ bởi
Family Joy, tổ ấm y tế của mọi gia đình, 714 898 0765.
Hi, welcome to the OC Health and Education Show on Little Saigon TV. I'm your host, Julie Yip. To us, OC stands for community because we believe that a community thrives when we come together. We thank you for joining us each Tuesday evening on channel 56.10 and on Wednesday morning. This is a bilingual English and Vietnamese program dedicated to educating, empowering, and inspiring on our community. Today on our show, we have Dr. Scott Comudala from the Center for Community Health. He is here to talk about his work in the community and in research in community and public health, as well as a practical application with virtual reality. Julie Yip kính chào quý vị khán giả của Little Saigon TV trong chương trình Kiến thức y khoa, gia đình và xã hội. Chương trình Kiến thức y khoa, gia đình và xã hội là chương trình OC Health and Education. Chương trình đây là chương trình song ngữ. Julie hy vọng nói về thông tin rất là quan trọng cho quý vị khán giả của Little Saigon TV. Hôm nay trên chương trình, Julie mời được Dr. Scott Comudala. Dr. Scott Comudala là Director of the Center for Community Health. Hôm nay nói về virtual reality, mà thêm nữa về cái công việc của Scott trong nhà nghiên cứu. Dr. Scott Comudala, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on. We've been friends for how many years now?
Oh, 25 plus years. You know, I'm so happy to be able to work with you because, you know, we've been friends and we've done so much in the community together. But I think this is the first time I'm able to talk about your professional work. Can you tell the community about your education and what you do in the community?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of crossover in our interests. So that's why I'm really excited to be here.
Yes.
So my background is in statistics, and that's what I got my master's in and my doctorate, and specifically statistics and public health. And it's really applying statistics to help people live healthier lives. So, you know, statistics have been in the news lately around COVID.
Yes.
Certainly to model the COVID trends. But what a lot of people don't realize is statistics has been around long before COVID. It's just been prominent lately. You know, we need to use statistics to evaluate pharmaceuticals, to evaluate behavioral health interventions, to help people lead healthier lives. So statistics is where I started. That really gave me my kind of go in all of this. And then I've moved into behavioral interventions from that, moved from just analyzing the data to working with scientists to actually develop the interventions and evaluate them on a large scale. So one of my real passions for community programs is bringing technology to bear to help people lead healthier lives.
Well, you know, when you talk about statistics, most of us don't really know what that means, and especially before pre-COVID. I know I was making fun of you a lot.
You did, yes. My wife makes fun of me and a lot of my friends.
Because, you know, you crunch all these numbers, but I think during COVID, we definitely understood that the things that you do is very important because it actually tells us how to make rules, policies, and to protect our community and our community as a whole. As we know, COVID is something that requires everybody's buy-in and everybody's participation so we can get through this together. So thank you so much, Dr. Comudala, for sharing your important work in our community and for having the facts, the numbers to back up why we should behave a certain way and so how we can stay healthier. Thưa quý vị khán giả của Little Saigon TV, trong chương trình Kiến thức y khoa, gia đình và xã hội, Dr. Scott Comudala là một người Director for the Center for Community Health. Dr. Scott Comudala có cũng thiệt ra 3 cái bằng, 2 bằng Master về Public Health về Science, cũng có bằng Doctorate ở UCLA về Public Health. Scott nói về statistics. Statistics là cái số về chất lượng để cho mình phải hiểu về, ví dụ vân vân về COVID, để cho làm sao mình thay đổi cái hành vi của mình về cái cách mình sống trong một COVID, làm sao cho mình có cái sức khỏe của cộng đồng. Scott, I just wanted to kind of recap a little bit about what statistics is and how it applies to our community. I also share with our viewers that you have 2 master's degree and a doctorate degree. You know, I only have 1 master, so I think you got me beat.
I figured my family didn't have quite enough graduations to go to, so I wanted to torment them just a little bit more.
You know, I know that, we've met in the 90s and we both work with Dr. Sharani, who is, kind of like a mother to us and a mentor to us. And I think what she taught us was to be able to serve our community well, in basically, our youth, our Loma Linda background.
Right.
But really, I think it means so much for us on what we do today. Tell me a little bit about how your family, how your child, how your wife influence your work to transition to a passion project such as the virtual reality.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, it really started for me in childhood. My dad was a dentist. My mom had a nursing background. So that community slant, public health, was kind of in the blood.
Okay.
And, fast forwarding years later, getting the degree in public health, and my wife, Jeanette, give a shout out to her, and my daughter, Sophie. My wife is very much focused on her friends and helping people.
Oh.
So it's kind of a natural partnership there. She's more on the business side and women's ministry. So we work in different areas, but really the focus is on community and helping people.
So I know you, hopefully the audience will be able to see some of the photos that we're going to be sharing with the virtual reality. I know you shared with me that, one of the reasons you did it was to help reduce the anxiety that your daughter was having when she had a medical procedure. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my daughter, Sophie, and give a shout out to her too. I'm sure she'll
You don't want to forget your family.
Yeah, don't want to forget the family, especially the daughter. She's 8 right now, but she had surgery when I believe she was 5 or 6. And, it was a fairly minor surgery. It's the one where they put the tubes in the ears and they scrape a little off the adenoid gland in the back of the throat. And what I realized from that was she was really scared. I mean, let's face it, I had hernia surgery about 10 years ago now. I was scared as an adult.
Wow.
But at least as an adult, we understand what's going to happen to us.
Correct.
How do you explain that to a child? They're meeting new people all of a sudden. They're being rolled into a room with all this scary equipment. Kids in Sophie's class were telling her, they're going to cut your stomach open and all these. So, I mean, she was terrified.
Okay.
And, we're fortunate enough, we have great medical care, the UCLA docs and all that, but still, it was scary. It's a scary experience. So it got my wheels turning, and the work that I do in public health, I've been fortunate enough to work with really great scientists with technology and all that. I had a chance, one of the first that I met at UCLA that does work in VR, Nantia Sutana, she kind of introduced me to that. And it got my wheels turning to think about, why can't we give kids a virtual walkthrough of what's going to happen the day of surgery so they're less scared? And this is being used in a lot of areas. I mean, at Stanford, Jeremy Bailenson has a center where he started this thing with quarterbacks, where they get them, kind of train them for what's going to happen during a play so that they can be better play callers. In the military, we use VR to train soldiers to kind of acclimate them. There's all kinds of applications, civilian, government, military, healthcare applications.
I mean, I hope to, work with you in the future to apply that technology to the Vietnamese community. So if, when we have an opportunity to create the Vietnamese Cultural Heritage Center, I think it's really important that people kind of see where we came from and kind of having that historical experience.
Absolutely.
And I know when I work in the space, in the disability space, it's training adults for adult employment is important, to teaching them what a facility looks like and what they can do. So I know there's so many great applications to the work that you do in the community. So
I'm glad you brought that up. So actually, this is great. We're announcing it here on your show today. 2 future collaborations that I can see. I love that you mentioned that around VR with the Cultural Center.
Yes.
Right now VR is being used to, for example, I forgot which university, but for archaeology students. So that it's very expensive, obviously, to send people to places like Egypt and whatnot and engage in actual digs. And of course, at some point, you need to do that.
Yes.
But during the training phase, you can actually go places virtually. You can virtually dig, you can virtually see pyramids and whatnot. So, you have such, Vietnam has such rich cultural history. you know, and all that, wouldn't it be wonderful for people to be able to walk into your cultural center, put on some goggles and experience different aspects, you know, historical, present day, and whatnot. Of course, you can't taste the delicious Vietnamese food. I've had a chance to go to Vietnam and taste that. Maybe that's coming someday, but at least for now you can see and experience. So that's one thing. The other thing, I know your passion is in autism as well. And I think that's really important. And that's crossover into what I want to develop too, sparked by Sophie's experience, is that as scary as surgery is for adults and then kids, think about for autistic kids especially. And so I know you've told me there's something called front loading with medical procedures, right?
Correct.
Just think about what we could do to let them virtually experience and to acclimate autistic kids.
Well, you know, Dr. Scott Comudala, I know you have so much to share. We're going to have to go to a commercial break.
Okay,
but
let's
continue our conversation and share with our audience about what we can do to help our community. Julie, cảm ơn quý vị khán giả của Little Saigon TV. Sau vòng quảng cáo, chúng tôi sẽ tiếp tục nói chuyện với Dr. Scott Comudala, the Director for the Center of Community Health, về nói về chương trình của VR, Virtual Reality. Cảm ơn quý vị khán giả của Little Saigon TV.
Chương trình này được bảo trợ bởi
Family Joy, tổ ấm y tế của mọi gia đình, 714 898 0765.
Hi, welcome back to the OC Health and Education Show on Little Saigon TV. I'm your host, Julie Yip. To us, OC stands for community, and today we have Dr. Scott Comudala, the director of the Center for Community Health, to talk about the importance of public health, but specifically to share with us his experience with virtual reality. Thưa quý vị khán giả của Little Saigon TV, trong chương trình Kiến thức y khoa, gia đình và xã hội, Julie nói chuyện với Dr. Scott Comudala. Trước khi vào quảng cáo, Scott chia sẻ với mình cái công việc của cái virtual reality, tại sao virtual reality rất là quan trọng, là tại cái chương trình của virtual reality sẽ có rất nhiều áp dụng trong cộng đồng của mình, về military, về healthcare, về cộng đồng của mình, rất là nhiều việc. Julie cũng nói đó là chừng nào mình có cái câu hỏi tạo được cái trung tâm văn hóa người Việt, cũng là tạo được cái virtual experience để cho mỗi người nước ngoài được có cái kinh nghiệm về cái hiểu của cái cộng đồng của Việt Nam của mình. Scott, thank you so much for sharing with us the importance of virtual reality. I know before the commercial break we were just about to talk about, you know, the applications of how we can use this within the disability community and within the medical world. You know, it's already been used in, you know, in training with, you know, I'm sure with the military and with other avenues. But now I'm just excited to kind of bring it to our community. And our community are those within the Vietnamese communities and those touched by the Vietnamese community. But I think, you know, I truly believe that we're all interconnected.
Absolutely.
We're on this earth together. We got to work together and, you know, find ways to help each other. So I know we just start talking about front loading. I know I shared that with you in my line of work. That front loading is something we use with children with autism, but it works with everybody. When there's a new experience, you kind of want to know what to expect. So you're just not just jumping into it without looking down or looking forward.
Absolutely.
Right? So Ted, can you tell me a little bit about your VR experience and why you do this?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Julie. So, you know, as my mentor, Nader Shatirian, with School Fab Lab and just reading up on what the other VR people are working on, when you think of VR, it's not just another technology. You know, a lot of times we hear now about the metaverse, and there's this catchphrase, right, with Facebook and everything, and people go, well, what is the metaverse?
What is that exactly? Because I'm not cool like you.
You're much cooler. You have your own TV show. You're a step ahead.
Well, tell us a little bit, for those of us who are not too familiar with what the metaverse is.
Absolutely. So, you know, some of us may have seen the movie Ready Player One, the Steven Spielberg movie. And in that movie, there's people that literally put on VR goggles and they basically live in an alternate universe. They're playing games, they're living. Now, you know, that's science fiction. The reality is nobody's going to be doing that per se.
Okay.
right? So right now, the way the technology is, you put on goggles, maybe 20 minutes, half hour. And, you know, I'm a believer that not everything should be done with technology. You need to get outside, walk around, we need to talk face to face. But what it can do for us, it gives us a sense of presence like no other technology. And as you know, a good example, it's very expensive to do certain things like to train physicians with tools, to train them in surgery. Now, before VR came along, what would we do with physicians? Well, we could have them train on a dummy, a plastic figure. We could put tools in their hands and kind of show them the instruments, and they could practice on the dummy. They could watch training videos. But why I say VR is a medium like none other is because it actually puts you at the center of the experience. You're no longer watching as a third-person observer. You're not just working on a dummy. When you put the goggles on, you can see a live person there if you're a physician. So right now, VR in the medical field has really been focused on training aspects, but it's also moving to pain management because we've realized that when we put goggles on patients and they can be transported to see a beautiful landscape, maybe they can go to Vietnam and see, you know, at rolling hills or whatever, walk around places, they forget about the pain they are experiencing in the moment.
Wow. So I really like that what you're talking about is that so far in the medical world, there's two practical applications. The first being training physicians and training the trainer, and the second one also being pain management. So then the focus is not just on the trainer, but it's actually on the patient themselves.
Exactly.
So I really want to make sure I share that with the audience so they kind of know what VR is and what application we have currently been doing in the medical world and the great ideas that you have to come. Thưa quý vị khán giả, hôm nay Dr. Scott Comudala nói với mình là VR technology là một cái technology rất là quan trọng. Hiện tại đó là trong cái medical community mình sẽ áp dụng cái technology để cho giúp bác sĩ để cho có kinh nghiệm với bệnh nhân, không phải là tập với cái người giả không, mà điều trùng mình bỏ cái goggle lên á, thì mình thấy giống như có bệnh nhân trước mặt mình, thì cái kinh nghiệm rất là hay. Trong công việc của Julie á, là Julie nói đó là cái tập là cái proprioception là cái mình hoạt động tay chân á, nó có nhiều ý nghĩa hơn mình chỉ coi cái video. So hồi xưa đó là bác sĩ có thể là coi video để cho hiểu, mà hiện tại đó cái VR technology sẽ tạo ra rất nhiều kinh nghiệm đặc biệt hơn cho train bác sĩ của mình. Mà bác sĩ Dr. Comudala nói là có hai cái áp dụng hiện tại về cái medical community. Trước nhất là train bác sĩ, sau nữa đó là pain management, làm sao mình giúp bệnh nhân. Nhiều lúc mình nghĩ là VR technology để cho mấy em chơi game không, mà thiệt ra mình vẫn giúp bệnh nhân. Chừng nào mình có cái procedure mình đau nhức á, mình bỏ cái VR technology, có thể mình quên cái đau nhức của mình, thì mình hiểu được cái pain, mình manage cái pain rất tốt hơn. You know, I've had a hard time trying to explaining what pain management with the VR because it's so new in our Vietnamese community that we oftentimes see medicine or acupuncture or herbal as a treatment, but we never thought of VR as being something you use to treat an ailment or also to manage some pains. You know, because I know for me, I have, you know, some back pains, you know, as we get older. After 40, everything hurts. So what I realize is that when I meditate, it's kind of like a VR experience, right?
It
You're
is.
taking your mind away from the physical pain, but to this mental beauty that kind of lets you escape a little bit in a sense, but to kind of not really numb the pain, but to manage the pain.
Absolutely.
You know, so thank you, Dr. Comudala, for sharing that. What is your application for children?
Yeah,
because I know you're I think the company that you're working on. Can you tell us how that helps children?
Absolutely. So, you know, I've been at UCLA for a number of years, and I'm still there. Great place to be a faculty member. So the end of last year, I co-founded a company with Justin Wagner, another UCLA faculty member, called Before Inc. And the idea is Before, and we've partnered with Nader Shatirian and his company School Fab Lab to do the development. And what the idea there before is this is what you do before you go into a medical procedure.
Okay. Well, you know, Dr. Comudala, after the commercial break, we're going to have a lot more opportunity to talk about the before ink and the future project that you have. Cảm ơn quý vị khán giả của Little Saigon TV. Sau phần quảng cáo, chúng tôi sẽ tiếp tục nói chuyện với Dr. Scott Comudala, Director for the Center of Community Health.
Chương trình này được bảo trợ bởi
Family Joy, tổ ấm y tế của mọi gia đình. 714 898 0765.
Hi, welcome back to the OC Health and Education Show on Little Saigon TV. I'm your host, Julie Yip. We're going to continue the conversation with Dr. Scott Comudala, the Director for Center for Community Health. He works in public health, but more importantly, he crunches numbers and does all these great, wonderful things to help our community. He's here to talk about and continue to talk about virtual reality. Just before the commercial break, we were just talking about, or just sharing with our community, your company. Tell me again what it is and what you're hoping to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I mentioned before 2 areas where VR is fairly well developed.
Yes.
One of them is in training. And, you know, teaching people with motor skills to get in the moment.
Yes.
Another area is pain management I mentioned. The area that we will really want to push the boundary on with Before Ink is emotions.
Oh.
So, you know, it's one thing to control yourself physically with what you do, but actually your emotional control.
Correct.
Going into those areas. So, you know, this boundary is being pushed in other areas. One of the more entertaining ones I've heard of is Walmart. Do you realize that they are using VR to train their staff on how to deal with the holiday rush? I mean, I'm not kidding. This is real. They are doing that now. Banks are starting to use VR to train tellers on dealing with different situations. And they're doing it not just to teach them how to manage tasks.
Correct.
It's the emotions. Imagine being a Walmart worker with a rush of crazy holiday... The mob, customers, right? I don't know if there's a Walmart close by here, but I know. But so the areas we want to do too with emotional control is for kids going into surgery and medical procedures. Because one of the things for a child that's really hard is to give up loss of control. Well, you've got kids.
Yeah.
I've got an 8-year-old. We can attest to change something up on a child and see what happens, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden there's a tantrum or something. They don't handle change well.
Yeah.
And so one of the things with VR, they can put on the headset, let's say they're going to have surgery, they can walk through that experience multiple times.
Okay.
It acclimates them. They can learn what's going to happen. They can learn, you know what, this is not fun, but I'm going to have to lay on the gurney. Someone is going to put an induction mask over my face.
Okay.
That's not going to be enjoyable, but you can learn to train yourself through that. And so it's kind of like you were saying with the meditation earlier.
Yes.
You know, in those types of applications, it's that emotional regulation control.
You know, for me as a speech pathologist, I see it as communication.
It is.
It's a
Absolutely.
communication device because, you know, when you talk about emotion, it's not about communication with the people around you, but it's kind of that communication with yourself. You know, so with specifically with the pandemic, you know, there's so many people that we help and we counsel, but most of the time people think that, you know, mental health realm or emotional realms are only for, you know, counselors or psychologists or psychiatrists when it gets worse. But, you know, as a speech pathologist, we work on what's called cognitive linguistic. And that's another word I want to share with you. It's really thinking about language and really how do you problem solve, organize, and, you know, just go about your day or go about the experience. So what I would think about is that, you know, when someone is going through this VR technology, you're helping them talk to themselves about, you know, what is it that I should expect? How should I respond? And what it is, it's kind of like a rehearsal, right?
Absolutely.
We can do it for wedding rehearsal. And we can do it for all of these things. You know, when we do public speaking, we rehearse. And that's what I see it to be, that it's no different than a conversational acclamation that you use, that they experience, so you can alleviate some of the anxiety, the fears, and the unknown.
Right.
So I think that's a great idea for you to bring that. And I really love the fact that you call it before ink, you know, because before ink is really that front loading. What happens before? And how am I going to be in that situation? And how do I pull from that situation more effectively? So what do you think, Dr. Comudala?
You know, I love it. It gets back to when we first met and we worked for Dr. Shirani, the Teaching Learning Center at Loma Linda.
Yeah.
That was all about conversation.
Yes, yes.
You know, it was about, she worked with medical students, dental students, and it was preparing them for
like their MCATs and all these
MCATs,
hard
reading
tests.
faster.
Yes.
That's all about communication, reducing anxiety, communication with yourself, test taking.
So we're just going full circle?
We're going, you know what, everything comes back around. If only we could be as young as we were back then and go for full circle that way.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Comudala, for sharing that experience with the community. Thưa quý vị khán giả, hôm nay Julie có thời gian nói chuyện với Dr. Scott Comudala về virtual reality. Tại Dr. Comudala tạo được cái company là Before Inc. Before Inc. là một cái virtual reality company muốn áp dụng cái technology đây để cho giúp cộng đồng của mình về in the medical world. Scott có một đứa con 8 tuổi, đó là bé Sophie. Lúc mà bé Sophie phải đi bệnh viện á, Scott muốn tạo ra cái technology làm sao cho đứa em đây không có bị hội họp về sợ quán gì đỡ cho technology. Thì nói đó là khi nào mình có cái virtual technology, virtual reality, mình có cái experience giống như mình trong cái bệnh viện, mình bỏ cái device về trên mặt thì mấy em đây không có sợ hãi nhiều. Thì đó là rất là quan trọng. Julie với Scott hồi xưa làm cho Dr. Shirani đã trở Teaching Learning Center, một cái trung tâm mà giúp rất nhiều học sinh ở trường Loma Linda mà để cho học là thành bác sĩ, là pass cái test MSAT hoặc cái LSAT về mấy cái test vân vân rất là quan trọng. Mà Scott nói đó là cái technology đây để cho giúp về cái emotional control, làm sao một người đã được chỉnh về cái cách mình hồi hộp về mình có cái experience này. Scott, you know, I think the emotional control part of it, like I said, it's a communication to ourselves. But more importantly, what you were kind of alluding to was kind of taking back that control and taking back, like, you know, how we feel. Because feeling is important. I think a lot of us don't allow us to feel all the array of emotion, whether it be anger or fear. But what the virtual reality does, it allows us to kind of have that initial fear, but also teach us how to effectively and more calmly pull from this experience. So I thank you for being able to bring this. What should we expect, and when should we expect your project to come out? Is there any teaser, any dates?
Well, I don't want to give a specific date right now,
Yes.
but I will say, you know, it's going to be happening pretty fast, and we're making great progress working with Nader and School Fab Lab and moving forward.
Well, you know, Scott, like I said, I'll always be a friend to you. If you ever need my advice or unsolicited advice, I'll always give it to you.
I'll get it anyways.
You'll get it anyways. Okay. So can you tell us about your partnership? Who are you working with? Because I know you're sharing some of these names, but I've never met those friends yet.
Right, absolutely. So, you know, I have a background in statistics. I work in public health, but but I'm not a clinician.
Okay, yes.
So I knew I needed a partner who was in that space. So I met up with Justin Wagner, who is a young, up-and-coming, promising pediatric surgeon. Oh. He works at UCLA Mattel Children's Hospital, so thus the UCLA connection. That's what I love about being there. There's a lot of great connections.
Yes.
So I partnered up with him to co-found. I actually had the chance to meet Nader through another faculty member at UCLA, Nanthia Sutana, who's got her own VR lab. And she directed me towards Nader Shatirian. And I love his company because it's very community-based.
Okay.
They develop VR educational programs for kids. Wow. And it's focused on STEM programs. So, you know, now with STEM in schools, a lot of schools in lower income communities, they can't afford all the equipment. You know, robotics are great and all that, but what if you're in a school where they can't afford it? Well, guess what? Virtually, the kids can experience it.
Oh.
And so that's what his company does, but they've also done other medical applications. And so that common vision to want to help, especially kids in the community, it was just a natural formation there.
Well, it sounds like you have an amazing team together.
I do.
And
yeah.
I think that's very important because, you know, one of a sign of a good leader is knowing your weakness and how to bring that team together. So I'm very excited, Dr. Comudala, for you to share this information and this project ahead. After the commercial break, we're going to wrap up our show and summarize about all the great things that you're doing. Cảm ơn quý vị khán giả của Little Saigon TV. Sau phần quảng cáo, chúng tôi sẽ tiếp tục nói chuyện với Dr. Scott Comudala, Director for the Community Center. Cảm ơn quý vị.
Chương trình này được bảo trợ bởi
Family Joy, tổ ấm y tế của mọi gia đình. 714 898 0765.
Hi, welcome back to the OC Health and Education Show on Little Saigon TV. I'm your host, Julie Yip. We're going to continue our conversation today with Dr. Scott Comudala, the director for the Center for Community Health. He is also a professor at UCLA in public health and the School of Medicine, and he is here to talk about his experience with the VR technology and how to make a practical application to help the community. Julie Yip cảm ơn quý vị khán giả của Little Saigon TV đã tiếp tục theo dõi chương trình Kiến thức y khoa gia đình và xã hội. Hôm nay Julie nói chuyện với Dr. Scott Comudala là Director of the Center for Community Health, cũng là Professor at the School of Medicine and Public Health. Hôm nay nói về virtual reality and cái áp dụng để cho cái technology đây. Dr. Scott Comudala, thank you so much for sharing with us, your experiences, your family, talking about what a great, wonderful wife you have in Jeanette that's supporting what you do, but also have such an inspiration in your daughter, Sophie. That, a lot of times we as parents want to live a more meaningful and purposeful life. And what a greater purpose to meet the needs of your own children that's going to be able to help the community at large. A lot of times, I do work in the community for OC Autism. People are just telling me, oh, you're such a great person. The truth is, I experience autism. My family knows autism firsthand. So it's very hard because, when you're quote unquote high functioning, that term tells a community that you don't need help, that you don't need accommodation, that you don't need support, and maybe that you're not even deserving of the support that is available. So I know one of my biggest goal in the community is to kind of eliminate the barriers to access, accessing much needed programs, accessing much needed resources, and accessing one of the most important things is information. In putting in a language and in a culturally sensitive way where our family is more willing to receive that help. And I truly believe that your virtual reality application will help, not only my Vietnamese community or my disability community, but I think, every community who experience this barrier to getting what they need. Can you talk towards that access component?
Absolutely. I love that you brought that up. We could almost have another whole show and just talk about that. The VR work in reducing barriers really builds off my passion and what I've been involved in my whole career in public health.
Yes.
And you think about the two of us sitting here, one of the reasons we're sitting here is because we have community. We have people pulling for us.
Yes.
When I look back, I've just mentioned a few names, but I think, faith is very important to me. God.
Most definitely.
Community. I think of people in my life. I mentioned the parents, Mary Jane Rotherham Boris, Isa Fernandez, Rob Weiss. These are all faculty members that made a huge impact. I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have them. And I think there's a lot of people that they don't have that.
Yes.
And that's the only difference between us that make it and the people that don't, is that they don't have that. So how can we give that to them? So a lot of the work I do is with HIV, substance use. And one of the things you mentioned that I liked was functioning. There's a lot of people walking around that are functioning, but they deal with alcoholism. They deal with depression, anxiety. People in high-risk situations with HIV and whatnot. You know, they're next door, our neighbors, and they're suffering on their own. So how do we reduce those barriers? And you know, some of the work is with the healthcare providers, making them more attuned to the needs. And that's one of the areas I believe with virtual reality where we can help train providers as well. You know, we all communicate best with people that look like us, that sound like us. I mean, we're an exception, I guess. We communicate just fine. We don't look alike.
Because we're twins.
We're twins, yeah, in some ways. But in general, in all seriousness, that's kind of the norm. And so what do you get when you get someone who comes into your clinic? You're a healthcare provider. They're a substance user or whatnot. They don't look like you. How do you break those barriers down? Well, we're seeing evidence that VR can help deal with what we call implicit and explicit biases we have towards people. That's a whole other...
That's hard for people to accept because, you know, we all believe that we don't have these biases and that we're loving and caring. But, you know, unfortunately, there are a lot of those. And especially when you do research, you have the numbers to support that exists.
So a lot of the work we try to do to emphasize, it's working together, working with community partners. Some of the pictures I provided to you, everything I do is with teams. You know, I have pictures of my people in my office, faculty, staff, me zipping down the hall in a scooter with my IT guy, Johnny. I can't do anything alone. And that's what we forget with people in our community is that they can't do it alone either. They need our help. They need each other.
And we all need each other.
We all need each other,
And I think that's, you know, when I do the show, I always tell people that OC to me stands for community.
I love it.
And my daughter always makes fun of me. My kids are like, oh, OC stands for community. But the truth is, that's what it is to me. Because I truly believe that we do need to lend each other's talent and skills so we can support each other's projects. So you'll always have my support, Scott.
Same here, Julie. I appreciate
thank you
that.
so much. Thưa quý vị khán giả, hôm nay Julie nói chuyện với Dr. Scott Comudala of Beyond Inc. Beyond Inc. là một cái virtual reality company giúp cho cái áp dụng virtual reality cho giúp cho cộng đồng của mình. Trước nhất, Scott có một đứa con 8 tuổi muốn giúp cho con em để cho khỏi bị cái anxiety lúc mà có cái medical procedure. Mà thêm nữa đó, Scott là một cái người public health, làm sao là cái áp dụng cái research, cái data, cái số, cái về statistics để cho giúp cho cộng đồng của mình làm suy nghĩ về cái rules, policy, procedure. Một cái việc gì mà Julie làm trong cộng đồng mà Julie thấy là rất quan trọng á, là to eliminate barriers to access. Rất nhiều người Việt Nam của mình hay nhiều người mà không có biết nói tiếng Anh thì có thể có nhiều cái khó khăn để cho tìm nhiều cái dịch vụ để cho giúp cho mình, mà thêm nữa là về đủ cái thông tin để cho mình hiểu về làm sao mình giúp gia đình của mình thêm. Mà điều cái virtual reality á, là giúp cho eliminate cái barriers to access. Trước nhất Dr. Scott Comudala nói đó là it makes it more accessible. Chừng nào mình không có tiền để cho mình bay qua nước khác, mình được cái experience đó, cái virtual reality tạo ra cái cơ hội đó. Dr. Comudala, you know, I just tried to kind of recap kind of the importance of your work, but I know I couldn't do all justice to all that you're saying. But I think most importantly, I really appreciate that you're making sure that there are more opportunities. That's what you're creating with your virtual reality. You're creating more opportunities to accessing and experiencing the world. Because I know as a speech pathologist, language develops with opportunities. And when our kids don't have the opportunities, they don't have the language to attach it to. So I'm going to continue to follow your work and to follow all the great things that you're doing. Are there any things that you want to say to our viewers, to our community, just to kind of remind them the importance of public health and how virtual reality can help our community as we close the program?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say, you know, having traveled the world, I love different communities. And having gone to Vietnam, I love the people there, just everything about the culture. And, you know, I just look forward to working with you and other people in the Vietnamese community to bringing VR to bear to public health issues, whether it's with front-loading with autism, the cultural center. You're going to be opening to give people an experience there. You know, I'll just close with one thought. I remember years ago going to South Africa, and the kids there wanted me to take pictures of them. And at the time, it was with a digital camera. We didn't have the phones on our... And I asked them why, and they said, I've never seen myself. They didn't have mirrors.
Oh,
we
wow.
take for granted.
Yeah.
So, thinking back to that and the different experience, it's like you said, virtual reality can reduce barriers and access by giving people a chance to see themselves, the world around them, in a different light that they wouldn't have had otherwise.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Comudala, for coming all the way from LA to our set today and to share, the richness of your experience. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Julie cảm ơn quý vị khán giả của Little Saigon TV đã luôn luôn ủng hộ chương trình Kiến thức y khoa, gia đình và xã hội. Hôm nay Julie có thời gian nói chuyện với Dr. Scott Comudala and the practical application of virtual reality. Quan trọng nhất là Julie với Dr. Scott Comudala muốn tạo ra rất nhiều câu hỏi cho con của mình với cộng đồng của mình, có nhiều cái experience để cho mình hiểu mình, với thêm nữa hiểu về cái world around us. Julie luôn luôn chúc quý vị khán giả rất nhiều hạnh phúc và sức khỏe. Cảm ơn quý vị khán giả của Little Saigon TV.